gentlemen, Rahul Gandhi has called the decision to appoint the new Chief Election Commissioner as a midnight decision that's disrespectful, discourteous. And in matter of few hours, Supreme Court will take up on priority a battery of petitions that have challenged the appointment process, which by law passed in the Parliament mandates for a CEC to be appointed by a panel constituting of the Prime Minister, a cabinet minister selected by him, and the leader of the opposition. In the latest case, the panel constituted of Prime Minister Modi, Home Minister Amit Shah, and leader of opposition Rahul Gandhi under the Act that was brought after an intervention from the Supreme Court. But absent was the Chief Justice of India, contrary to the recommendation of the Supreme Court, because the Act passed by the Parliament replaced the need for the CJI with a minister recommended by the Prime Minister. If we can have that graphics about what constituted it and what was amiss. By the way, many people have argued that the replacing of CJI with a union cabinet minister, in this case the Home Minister, effectively gives the government the final say on who is selected. The non-profit group Association for Democratic Reforms has challenged the removal of the Chief Justice of India as a member of the selection committee under the new law. Prashant Bhushan has called it a mockery of democracy, violation of constitutional bench verdict. Well, what really had the Apex Court said when it had given out its recommendation? It had said that President should appoint the CEC and the election commissions based on the panel that would constitute of the Prime Minister, the Chief Justice of India, and the leader of opposition of Lok Sabha. Arrangement should be in place till the Parliament makes a new law. A law which will be a permanent mechanism. So what really changed vis-a-vis what exists and what was earlier? Let's just very quickly look at this. Earlier, you had the appointment by the President of India recommended by a ruling government, no specific guidelines or criteria as such. Now, post-2023, there's a committee headed by a law minister that's supposed to give a shortlisted names, a list of the shortlisted names, which is recommended by the Prime Minister, a cabinet minister, and an LOP in this particular case. But the court had said would be by the Prime Minister, the Chief Justice of India, and the leader of opposition till the government went ahead and made a law. And recommendations are made public. So what is this entirely about? Is this a democratic process, or is this an executive excess? And there's also another aspect to it, that is if there is a subversion of a constitutional bench ruling. Well, that's something that the Supreme Court, of course, is going to be hearing in just a matter of few hours. But joining me right now is O.P. Rawat, the former Chief Election Commissioner of India. And I'm also going to be joined by others. Let me introduce everybody. Very good evening, Mr. O.P. Rawat. Thank you very much for joining us. Also joining me on the show is Manish Bariyar, who's a political analyst, Sujata Paul, who's a spokesperson for Congress, Jagdeep Chokar, who is a co-founder for ADR, Dr. Uday Nirgudkar, who's a senior journalist. Thank you very much, all of you, for joining me. Well, give me a few minutes. Let me just very quickly take these questions from Mr. O.P. Rawat. Mr. O.P. Rawat, so my first question to you, Mr. O.P. Rawat, is what do you make out of the entire allegations that the opposition is raising? Firstly, Rahul Gandhi is saying it's a midnight decision, which is absolutely disrespectful and discourteous. What was the hurry is they are asking? How do you look at it?
Because the current Chief Election Commissioner was demitting office today. That was the urgency, because the Election Commission cannot remain headless even for a moment. The Election Commission should have a head and should have a full quorum also. So that was the hurry. Second thing is, matter is sub judice, I also know, and therefore with due respect to Honorable Supreme Court, I won't comment anything on that aspect. But whatever government has done, Honorable Supreme Court's order was that you have not enacted a law prescribing how to select and appoint CEC and EC. And therefore, we direct that till you enact a law in this regard, you will go through the committee of PM, CJI, and LOP. That was the order. And government and parliament, in their own wisdom, they decided to enact the law. And law is in place, which is perfectly constitutional. And following that law, they have appointed the new CEC and EC. So there is nothing wrong.
That's interesting. You are saying is absolutely in accordance to what the Supreme Court has said. But doesn't it seem that everything is hugely political right now? And because you don't have the Chief Justice of India, you have the government, which is in majority. I'm saying government because you have the Prime Minister and a cabinet minister. The leader of opposition has given his dissenting note, but that really doesn't count. The decision has been made. The so-called neutral voice isn't there. Doesn't it give a wrong message?
I don't think it gives any wrong message because in many cases, neutrality is not supreme. In some cases, pragmatism is supreme. That elections cannot be halted even for a moment, have to be delivered. And that is why even Constitution provided that no court of India shall interfere in the process once the notification is issued and elections are concluded. Election Commission will be the sole arbiter of all the grievances and everything. With that in mind, you should understand that whatever Parliament has enacted is all right.
Now, as a former CEC, don't you think there was another way of doing this? Could there have been another way? Constitutionally, this is a constitutional body. Could there have been any other way of going about this that would possibly not have come under a political scanner or, raise these political aspersions from concerned parties?
Absolutely no. People call us Banana Republic just because of these kind of machinations. Government did the right thing, not going for that kind of thing, at least for one constitutional authority that is called Election Commission. They refrained from doing that. No tinkering, no deviation, nothing.
No, but Mr. O.P. Rawat, then, the whole question comes to this. The court had made certain recommendations and court had said, go by this by the time there is a law that is made. The government did come with that law. Now, the court had spoken about political entities to the panel and the court had also spoken about the CJI. The CJI was not part of the law. Do you see the spirit intact? The intent, the spirit intact of what the court had said in the process that had which was eventually passed in the parliament and followed through for the new CEC. Do you see the spirit really being followed of it?
Yes, perfectly carried on. Because Supreme Court wanted the law to be enacted and till the law is enacted, this procedure should be followed. Law is enacted and now law is supreme.
So why are these petitions being filed in the court? And these are not just random political petitions, that you can just put away by saying these are political detractors or, so on and so forth. These are respected organizations. You have ADR, that's, an independent watchdog, as it were, for a democratic process in our country. You have Prashant Bhushan. These are people with their own credibility to the process.
I have a lot of respect for ADR, a lot of respect for other names you have called, and they are doing their job very well, perfectly. And same thing I would say for Parliament. They have done their job perfectly, and government has also done perfectly well in appointing these people.
All right, Mr. O.P. Rawat, thank you very much for your time. Thank you very much for your perspective. I'm sure we'll be hearing from you again in a matter of few hours. Thank you very much for joining us. Well, and to our panelists at this point, our experts here with us, Jagdeep Chokar, let me just start with you. You heard O.P. Rawat. And he's saying what's wrong. He doesn't see any subversion of the spirit of what the Supreme Court entailed. He doesn't see anything wrong with what the government has done. He said the appointment had to be done. It could not be kept on hold. There was a process that had been followed, an act that had been passed. So what's wrong?
Well, Mr. Rawat said a number of things. One is that the Election Commission cannot be headless even for a moment. Just 2 years ago, there was a vacancy of an election commissioner for 8 months. Just because the chief election commissioner is not there, it does not mean the election commission is headless. There are 2 other election commissioners which have exactly the same powers as the election commission, number 1. Number 2, he said the parliament, the Supreme Court said a law should be made and the parliament has made a law. Now, it is also to be understood and remembered that parliament can make any law it wants, but laws made by the parliament are also required and can be scrutinized by the Supreme Court. There is something called judicial oversight of lawmaking, which is provided for in the Constitution. In its original judgment of February 23, the Supreme Court had spent 250 pages describing the rationale for the appointment process not to be controlled exclusively by the government of the day or the executive. It referred to the debates in the Assembly, saying that the Election Commission's appointment cannot be left purely and solely in the hands of the government. So Supreme Court spent 250 pages. After that, respecting the autonomy of the parliament, it said the parliament should make a law. Then it also said, Mr. Rawat was correct, that till the law is made, this system will exist. But that was also a gentle hint that the law that is made should keep the appointment process be not only exclusively in the hands of the executive. So what the parliament did in its wisdom is that they followed the letter of the law.
Right.
They completely ignored the spirit of the law. And that is why we went to court. We have not gone to court yesterday. We went to court 2 years ago when the law was made. We said this law violates the spirit of the judgment and the spirit of the Constituent Assembly. Therefore, this law needs to be changed. And there is nothing wrong with that. I mean, we are not questioning the parliament. We are saying the law that the parliament has made, in our opinion, does not match the arguments and the logic given by the Supreme Court in its judgment of February 23. Supreme Court will decide whether that is correct.
Okay, Mr. Dr. Uday Nirgudkar, please come in at this point. I mean, let's face the facts. So, one, there is an argument that, listen, for decades, the country has run with the executive appointing the CEC, as it were. That may have been the case, but here's what the court said, and Mr. Chokar has a very important point, and that is, while the court was giving its recommendations, one of the things that the court really weighed in was this, that the executive alone cannot decide, and therefore it had mandated that the CJI should come in. Do you also believe that the spirit of the law is followed in the process that has been followed?
I have a counter question to ask to all the panelists, including you, and for viewers to ponder upon. Taking into consideration the dissent note of Honorable Rahul Gandhi ji, had the appointment not been done, would that have been in accordance with the law passed by the parliament, of which he is a part? Maybe he has not signed, maybe he has voted against, but it has been passed by majority, so it is binding and applicable to one and all. Suppose if today, taking into consideration what dissent he has noted, if the appointment was not done, will it not be going against the spirit of the law? That's my first point. Second, is it challenging the eligibility of the new CEC appointed? No. Third, what is the history of the person who has given the dissent letter? He has, for once, talked about EVM. Then he has talked about voter list. Now he has talked about the appointment of CEC. I believe that since the case is being heard and not given a full justice till that time, whatever the law holds good, the government has to follow, appoint the person. If somebody challenges the eligibility, he can do so. But at this point of time, whatever has happened as per the complete knowledge of and spirit of the law. That's it.
Okay, that's an that's an interesting perspective. Let me just take it to Sujata Paul, who would possibly want to answer the first question you asked. About the credentials of Rahul Gandhi and the issues that he has raised in the past. Let's face the fact. If you have a political panel, they will come with their political baggage, and they will come with their political whims and fancies, concerns, objections, beliefs, whatsoever you want to call them, depending upon which facet you come from. So Rahul Gandhi comes with what he comes with, whatever he says. The point here is, and when you make the second argument with Dr. Uday Nirgudkar, isn't that the whole point? That it is the executive, it is the political executive that eventually is getting to decide what the CEC is doing, who's going to be the CEC. So how is it different from what was happening earlier? We'll get to that in a bit, and I'll come to that to you for that question. But Sujata Paul, let's answer what Dr. Uday Nirgudkar asked first. Go ahead.
First of all, I heard Mr. Rawat and his very clinical view about the whole thing, because what he said was right, that the Honorable Supreme Court has said that you will have the CJI, the leader of opposition, along with the Prime Minister, till you enact a law. But when that law was made, when that law was formed, laws are for whom, Sneha? It is for the people of this country. And if the people of this country have doubts about a system, you have to answer those questions. If the people of this country question the credibility of any organization, you will not tell them to shut up, but you will answer their questions, because it is the people of this country who are the real owners of this country. Now, when we talk about what has happened, I think we are also forgetting that when on 23rd March 2023, the Honorable Supreme Court had said that the Chief Justice of India will be with the Prime Minister and the LOP in selection of the Chief Election Commissioner or the other election commissioners. That means the constitution of the entire body. Now, when the law is passed and it is bulldozed through Parliament because of the brute majority that this government had till 2024 Lok Sabha elections, are you going to try and tell me that anybody listened to anybody at all? Or if the opposition were trying to make a point, was there anybody listening? But that's not the point today. The point is that there was a post of the election commissioner which was vacant for 8 months, and I think somebody has already mentioned it, so I don't want to go into it. But you tell me, if there are petitions in the Honorable Court, and there are 3 or 4 orders which have already been passed in it, and on the 19th of February, merely 2 days after this appointment took place, a hearing has to happen. Why is it so necessary for the Prime Minister and the Home Minister to ensure that that a person of their choice is put in place? Gyanesh Kumar ji is the person who oversees the elections of 2024 Lok Sabha. So make no mistake that he is a person of their choice. And let's not forget the manner in which the previous CEC, his tenure kept being extended. So there are questions, and these questions will be asked, because it is not just the credibility, but the democracy of this country which is at stake, Sneha. And when the government is trying to grab power, it does it. And when the leader of opposition has made his dissent note public, you can say whatever, but he is very clear on certain points, and these are questions of ethics, morality, and that is basically for the democracy of this country. The spirit of the constitution says that things should be non-biased and fair. Are they really fair in this appointment?
Okay, Sujata Paul. You know, there's a question that Dr. Uday asked. I'll go to Mr. Choker to get that answer. I'll go to him. But since you have raised this point, why don't you come in, Manish Bariyar? Why don't you respond to what Sujata Paul has just said? Sujata Paul is asking a very simple question. What was the hurry? Sujata Paul is asking one question. There are concerns. There are things before the court. There are concerns that have been raised from different quarters. They may be valid, may not be valid whatsoever. But what was the rush to push it through? And at the end of the day, amid this entire cloud of doubt and, you know, all of that is raging, you have another allegation coming in that CEC is the man of convenience, of preference, and it is theirs. You know what I mean to say? So, Manish Bariyar, you just heard Sujata Paul ask these questions. Why don't you respond to that?
Good evening, Sneha ji, and good evening to my co-panelists and all the viewers. Let me give you some of the examples of credibility, ethics and morals which Ms. Sujata Paul was talking about. So give me just 1 minute and then I will come back to your question. Mr. M.S. Gill, who was the Chief Election Commissioner from 96 to 2001, he was made a Rajya Sabha member from 2004 to 2016 by Congress government, and he was a Minister of Youth Affairs and Sports from 2009 to 11. Mr. J.M. Lindo, who was Chief Election Commissioner from 2001 to 4, he joined Congress. Even Mr. T.N. Session, of high regard for him, he was Election Commissioner from 90 to 96. He contested elections from Congress in 1996. Mr. V.S. Ramadevi, 1990, he was made governor. We have several examples of all these ethics and morals and everything that was done by Congress party for 50 years in our country. And look at how we are being lectured on morals and ethics. That is one. Second, last time, the Chief Election Commissioner was also appointed by BJP, and look at what happened in Lok Sabha. I'm sure everybody knows that the number of seats came down, and it's so shameful that you are actually raising question mark over constitutional bodies. You can look at Chief Vigilance Officer, you can look at Lokpal. There are so many other constitutional bodies that the government of India appoints. You're basically putting a question mark on the wisdom of people of India. Ma'am was talking about that you have a brute majority, but that you have to respect the wisdom of the country, of the people of India, that they have given that mandate to BJP, and then they have every right to do that. So to lecture on morals and principles on this is highly unfair. I think the previous Chief Election Commissioner, he was bang on when he said that Supreme Court said, and I would come about the spirit of the law also. See, there are so many constitutional posts, including this. Has it ever happened that the elections have not been done fair and freely? Nobody has questioned. World over, people come to our country and we are a role model, the way in which our democracy works. And that's why you find that the ruling party gets, decimated a lot of places. So there is no question mark on the authenticity, the way the elections are committed. And it's, I always call that Mr. Rahul Gandhi, with due respect, is a crybaby. He has to raise the right issues. And here, I don't think, he was well within his right to give a dissent note. That's fine, right? He's well within his right to say that, okay, we are going to fight this in court. But to question the appointment is not correct, right? It's absolutely not correct. And if everything is as per the law, where is the question mark? I don't see that.
Can I come in?
Okay. Sujata Paul, go ahead.
Yes. In the last Lok Sabha and the previous one, we saw that laws were bulldozed. Have you forgotten the 3 farm laws, which you had to take back? So make no mistake, you might come as a political analyst today and as a BJP supporter tomorrow, but it doesn't take away from the fact that you have admitted clearly today that if the Congress party made a mistake, then you are going to follow it. You said it. You said they appointed MS Gill. That means you're questioning the constitutional authorities, We're not questioning the authorities. We are questioning the procedure of appointment of these authorities because there's a question mark on these very people. Tell me, why was Mr. Rajiv Kumar given so many extensions? Now, are you going to appoint people at midnight and 2 days before this final, the hearing was to take place? Also, explain to me, why is it that the BJP has nobody other than the two men from Gujarat? That means you are allowing them to not just hijack your party, but the country, and that is not going to be allowed. So the questions of morality, questions of ethics, question of constitutionality will definitely be asked, of you. And the answers will come from the Supreme Court also, but morality and ethical values of the BJP are clearly visible from the fact that you do not respect the authority of the people of this country who are questioning you today.
Okay, Manish Bariyar, quick response.
See, it is very surprising and very sad that, it is coming from Congress party, because we have had long lists. I don't want to really rant about it. But then coming from Congress party about ethics, morals, after doing so much of wrongdoing in the past is something which is bizarre. But I would like to say that here the law was followed. The election commissioner says that, and the whole nation knows that the law was followed. Now, I have a question mark even on the judgment. See, I have a lot of respect for Supreme Court of India and the Chief Justice, but how is it possible that the Supreme Court of India decides, the Chief Justice decides that I am going to be on the panel? There was some reason, and you have to respect the Constitution of India, Baba Sahib Rao Bhim Ambedkar. You have to, respect that. There must be some reason that, the law was, Article 364 said that it has to be done by the President of the India. Right, that is what I'm saying. I'm not questioning it. Please do not, distort it.
You are.
I do not expect that from you, or maybe
No,
you are like that.
Understand this argument.
I'm sorry for that.
I didn't understand this argument. What are you talking about?
That.
Would you want to repeat
and
what
I'm sure,
you just said?
She would show
would you
some
just
courtesy.
repeat what you said, because I
She
didn't
has to
understand.
show
I kind of got
some
lost.
Sneha, she cannot just interrupt and bulldoze me. She cannot come in between.
Manish Bariyar,
That's bad manners. She has to learn that.
No, Manish Bariyar, go ahead. Manish Bariyar, I'm speaking to Manish Bariyar. Allow Manish Bariyar to speak. Manish Bariyar, please respond. Make that point. What is that point you're talking about?
Yeah, what I was saying is that, so my point was that when the Supreme Court of India itself decides that we are going to be on the panel, that was something which was not acceptable to the Parliament and to the will of the country. And therefore, the Supreme Court of India was not, the Chief Justice was not a part of it. So there is no question, when the people of the country, the Parliament decides, the will of the people decides, where is the question of morality here? So you are questioning the people of the country itself.
Okay. Sujata Paul, quick response, 40 seconds, because I need to go to Mr. Choker as well as Mr. Uday. Go ahead, please, Sujata Paul.
Absolutely. Sneha, the petition has been filed Honorable Supreme Court, before the Honorable Supreme Court. It is the Honorable Supreme Court which is expected to be non-biased, and it is supposed to be deciding in favor of the people of this country as per the Constitution, to save the democracy of this country. But what the BJP seems to be saying is that that authority is not going to be respected by them, because the Supreme Court says that the Chief Justice of India should be on the panel. Mind you, the credibility of the Chief Justice of India cannot be questioned. And when he's on the panel, every person in this country will have faith on that panel. So why are you scared about it? Why do you want the Chief Justice of India on the panel? Why do you want the two people from
Both of you have
Gujarat
made your points. Both of you have made your points. Let me go back to Mr. Choker. Mr. Choker, let's rewind a little bit. And amid all of these arguments, which are important in their place, Dr. Uday asked one important question, and that is, if while there was a law that was passed by the Parliament, opposition may say it was riding on the strength of the brute majority that the ruling party got at that time, which was a people's mandate. Nonetheless, here's the point. The question is, if there was a law that was passed by the Parliament, it is existing, it is not scrapped, it is not left in abeyance, the court has not said don't go by it, and if the CEC is not appointed, would then have upheld the mandate of people and the constitutional norms?
I am not sure about your question, as I'm not sure of the discussion that has gone on so far. But the law that the parliament made following a direction from the Supreme Court, I accept that law exists, but that law has been questioned in the court. And the Supreme Court, under the Constitution, is well within its rights. There is something called judicial oversight. There have been many instances where Parliament has passed a law, but the Supreme Court has said it is unconstitutional. The last such case, which everybody remembers, is of electoral bonds. The electoral bond scheme was passed by Parliament. But the Constitution, the Supreme Court said it is unconstitutional, therefore it went out. So, law passed by the Parliament is not a finality. It is subject to review by the Supreme Court. And that is the simple issue here. We filed a petition to review that law 2 years ago. That continues to be under hearing. As it happened, the last hearing was on February 12. One of the judges was taken ill, and then they decided to put it on February 19. The court was told that the chief electoral officer will retire, and therefore they should hear it earlier. They said, we will hear it on the 19th and we will see what we can do. So I have no idea why.
So, Mr. Chokar, here's the thing. Here's where I'm... No, here's the thing. I mean, that's an important point that you've brought in.
Hold on.
Okay, go ahead.
I don't
know
why
BJP
and Congress are taking ownership of the issue. Either way, it is a matter of judicial determination. And we also think we represent the people of India. And we are people of India ourselves. We don't need to represent anybody. We have said that please review this.
Absolutely.
And if you think it violates your judgment, please do accordingly. I mean, it is not a political issue as far as I am concerned. It is a judicial issue, which a law passed by Parliament is to be judicially reviewed. That's all.
So, Mr. Chokar, here's the question. One of the things, and I'm asking you this as somebody who's a watchdog in a democratic country like India, watchdog of an entire procedure with the organization that you have, ADR. This whole concern about about an appointment being made a day or two before a hearing in the court, and that being portrayed as something that is rushed. Is there any heft to it, or you would say let the court decide that?
You see, this is not something new. When the original petition was being heard, at that time, hearings were going on in the court on a day-to-day basis. During that period, a position which had been vacant for 8 months was filled while the hearings were going on. And the court called for the file of that appointment. After examining it, they have written it in their judgment that this appointment was made with lightning speed in a very mysterious way. This is what is written in the judgment. Now, the point is the appointment is perfectly legal as the law stands today. But the law itself is under question. It is a matter of propriety. Legally, there is nothing wrong. Under the letter of the law, the government has done nothing wrong. But under the spirit of the law, if it had waited for a few days, no harm would have been done. It has been made. It's perfectly all right. We will challenge it. There's no problem.
All right. Dr. Uday, I believe you have been disagreeing with something. Please go ahead.
Can I just come in?
There are about 3 points which I want to make. The first one is
allow
about
Dr. Uday to come in. Allow Dr. Uday to come in, and I'll come to you after that.
Yeah. The first point I want to make is about the timing.
Sure.
Now, what was the timing? Do they mean that the Chief Election Commission, who is retiring in a day or two, the appointment, his replacement or whatever should have been done 2 months back? No, that's not the way it happens. That's number one. So the timing has nothing to do with the case pending. Number two, if I remember correctly, it was said in the Supreme Court, and pardon me if I mistake, but I think the judge was Mr. Chief Justice Suryakant, where it was observed that whatever is the decision, it will apply to the appointments in the interim period. Why the party
That's
agitating?
Right. That's true.
Why the party agitating is so nervous about it? Number 3, the process of choosing it changed, not the eligibility criteria. You cannot appoint anybody of your whims and fancies. There is an eligibility criteria which is earlier specified that holds good even today. It has not changed. That's why I asked in the beginning, what would have been right to take objection or dissent note is on the eligibility of the person. That has not been challenged. Now, what has been challenged is why the CEC is not there. Now, I have 2 points to make. Yes. Does anyone guarantee that that's the only way the transparency and democratic process is maintained if the CEC is not there? If the CEC is there, then only the process is democratic. That will be far-fetched too much. Then we should appoint a Chief Justice in every appointment of this country. One point I want to make is about the extensions. Congress should not open the can of worms about extension. I have full record of whose appointment was extended and for what reasons, but that's not the discussion because that's not going to give any benefit to the audience.
Okay.
Yep.
Dr. Joker, I can see you smile, but I'll come to you for the last word. A minute to you, Sujata Paul, and a minute to you, Manish Baryal.
Yes.
Manish Baryal, in fact, you've been raising your hand for a bit, so please go ahead, and then I'll come to Sujata Paul. Go ahead, Manish Baryal.
Yes, Sneha in fact, carrying on with my previous speaker, I'm really surprised that why this appointment is actually, making Congress party nervous as such. Is it like they keep finding excuses for, for their defeat and for the rejection by the people of the country? As some of the people were saying that sometimes EVM, sometimes election commission, sometimes something else. And second, there are a lot of cases pending in the court. So are you saying that the executive is going to freeze and no routine work is going to happen till now? What happens? You must ask the previous speaker, when the first speaker, when he was saying that what was the hurry. Now, is there any guarantee that the court is going to really decide day after tomorrow or tomorrow? Suppose the court postpones this decision for 6 months ahead. So are you saying that there is not going to be a chief election commissioner till that time? This is something which is bizarre.
Okay. Valid point. Valid point. Sujata Paul, go ahead, make your counter.
Yes, my counter is very clear that it is, we are saying that it is Mr. Amit Shah's right-hand man, Mr. Gyanesh Kumar, who has been brought in. And why is it that everywhere it is Mr. Amit Shah who has to assist Mr. Prime Minister in appointments? And are you nervous that in 2 days, the Supreme Court would have ordered that your process was wrong? And clearly, both the gentlemen have been saying, do not open your mouth, otherwise the can of worms will come out. Well, we are not in power. The Janta of this country told us to step out of power, but that they never said that you will be allowed to hijack power. And that is the reason why this has been done. This is why this midnight coup was done. And if you rely on the past, clearly it shows that you have no morality left. 2 wrongs never make a right.
Manish Baryal, less than 15 seconds because I have to go to Choker.
Yeah, just 1 second. Yeah, somebody's father, somebody's grandfather, somebody's aunt, all of them prime ministers, ministers of this country, and they are talking about morality. Really amazing.
All those congressmen who are now in BJP.
Jagdeep Choker, let's just get you in, Jagdeep Choker. Tomorrow is an important day in Supreme Court. Could you just weigh in about what likely is going to be emerging? When there is going to be a review of the executive order that has been passed, of the parliament, of the law that has been passed in the parliament, which is an act, and the Supreme Court reviews it. some argue, why should the Supreme Court every time intervene? How critical is that process to a democratic process to uphold the electoral process?
I have two things to say. One, why should the Supreme Court review a law is provided in the Constitution. I have said twice already, there is a concept of judicial oversight, which our constitution specifically provides. Parliament is the representative of the people. It is my representative also. But nobody is infallible. Neither the Parliament is infallible nor is the Supreme Court infallible. But the constitutional scheme says that the Supreme Court has the right to review or oversee a law made by the Parliament. That is a constitutional process. I don't think there's any need to question that. The second issue, which is a much broader issue, not only pertaining to this discussion, in this entire discussion, I have smiled, but I have felt very pained that our political parties are just not able to rise above their partisan interests. Appointment of the Election Commission is a matter of national concern. Unless the Election Commission is truly independent and truly not dependent on anybody in the executive or in the political class, we cannot have a democracy. Appointment of the Election Commission should be an issue.
Okay, Mr. Chokar,
where
I think that's
every
the important
political
point.
party rises
I'm
above.
out of time completely, but I think those are some important words to just end this show at. I think everybody will resonate with it. Every voter, every person who's listening to you would resonate with it. Nothing is more important than a constitutional body's appointment, and of course something that's going to drive the course of this nation, the governments to come. Thank you very much, panelists, for joining us. Mr. Uday, I think you want to make a point, but I'm totally out of time. Allow me this once. Manish Bariyar, Sujata Paul, thank you very much for your time. Jagdeep Chokar, as well as Dr. Uday Nirgodkar, thank you very much for adding your perspectives. Time for a very short break.